Welcome to the Spirituality What? Podcast, where we explore the mysteries, joys, and challenges of being spiritual beings navigating our unpredictable human experience we call life here on planet Earth. I'm your friendly guide, Rebecca, ready to jump into our adventure of the day. Wednesday means a new episode on Spirituality What? Welcome back, everybody, to part 2 of our exploration into spirituality with my good friend Mike. Today we're going to talk a little bit about mirrors and what that looks like, and triggers and challenges, and processing human experiences through our energy bodies or our chakras, and how that acts as the interface between the physical and the non-physical part of ourselves, and what it looks like to teach and enlighten future generations of spirituality from Mike's perspective.
Yeah.
You bring up an interesting topic, which we touched on a little bit in the spirituality and jujitsu episode with Natty Boss, which is mirroring and mirrors in the universe. So we talked about how in jujitsu, you are presented with your mirrors in these sort of other components. So what does that mean from your perspective? What is the universe doing there with mirrors?
Well, you could say that it's a constant thing, that we're always trying to understand ourselves through every situation and every person that we meet. And so just in the same way we would face a mirror and we see ourselves and we have to say, what is this thing that I'm seeing? Is this me? I think that's that way with everybody. We can see a person and say, oh, well, that's so similar to me. Is this person an aspect of me? And then when we see an aspect of ourselves in that person, we can kind of step back and feel the oneness of our nature a little bit more. But at the same time, we also see the things that trigger us, and that's really what it's for. Is the things of which we like and we dislike in other people. We can begin to explore more. Is that something that I like and dislike in me? As we make that connection. Now it's not necessarily easy to always think that way when we see other people and we're triggered by them. But it's like, I am not ever bothered by other people on the road anymore. And I feel like it's always fascinating to me to watch other people driving and having these experiences. And it's like, I'm pretty sure you're doing that same thing. And it's usually really fast too. When you watch other people drive, it's like, if they're bothered by somebody else on the road, you can probably see that same trip. They did that same kind of thing.
Yep.
And they just don't realize it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's just very hard to see that though, right? I mean, that's that disidentification sort of, and being able to step back and say, like, what do I see here? Like, what are the problems here?
Yeah.
Can I recognize that in myself, right? So otherwise, we're not seeing the mirrors. We're just going through life being like, oh, that's cool. That's interesting. And just meandering through. Yeah. Really cool stuff. So you are one of the most spiritual people that I know. So for the listeners, Mike knows a lot of cool shit, which is why we wanted to have him today. And so I wanted to, and you do a lot of things in spirituality. You talk about this, you read books, you're hosting discussion groups and all of this other stuff. And so from your experience, how do you balance even taking care of your son, the reality of everyday life of, needing to bring money home, needing to sleep, all of that, with this spiritual well-being or exploration of spirituality or transcendence or sort of growing and connecting spiritually?
I think it's little steps every day, every moment, coming back to the present moment every time when there's something out of balance. Yeah. It used to be that, the best way to find balance is to find that time to meditate. If I don't have time to meditate, I have to find something in the present moment to help me balance.
So is that focusing on love or gratitude or all just a variety of different things?
I think it's drilling in on whatever's bothering me and just going.
Triggers.
Yeah.
So looking more at the triggers.
Yeah. Finding the roots of what it is that's bothering me, and then finding what would be a way to balance that, which is forgiveness is ultimately the best word for it. I think acceptance is another word. But understanding the self, accepting the self, then becoming the creator, those are the three disciplines of the personality in the raw contact. So understanding what's going on with you is number one. Understanding how to find acceptance within that and total acceptance, love and forgiveness for yourself. And then for others, if it's something that you see in others only, you have to do both ways. But that's ultimately, I think, both relating to accepting yourself, accepting other people is a part of that. And then the third step, becoming the creator, is ultimately kind of like the mystical transformation or transmutation of our consciousness, which kind of is building us up to the next layer. And that can occur in many different ways. Mind, body, spirit. The transformation that's occurring within us is really the way that we don't have to deal with what we were dealing with previously. So having new philosophies about our life can be a way that we find that we don't have to worry about the same things anymore. Maybe finding a more healthy diet is a way that we don't have to worry as much about being low on energy, so that we can't face things properly. So maintaining our physical vehicle is also part of it. And I've had to learn about, supplements that could help me not feel so terrible.
Yeah.
as a parent who's not getting enough sleep.
Totally.
Yeah.
What recommendations do you have on that front? We might as well go there.
Yeah. I mean, lately, I think that I've been benefited a lot by cordyceps mushrooms and rhodiola. And lately I've been trying one called NMN, which Amazon banned because there's like some weird war with pharmaceutical companies to market as this drug, but it's just like related to the NAD pathway in the body that helps produce more energy from cells. But, yeah, I also like one called alkaline creatine, which seems to be a more digestible form of creatine that helps maintain the muscles and maintain energy, and it's great for the brain too. Lots of studies on that. And I always take every day a supplement called Gotukola, Gotukola. Yeah, that's my favorite supplement. Yeah, and that one seems to keep me in a more of a spiritual Zen state, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, maybe I should start taking that one. It's a daily spiritual Zen state. I like that. So I'm thinking how best to. I might have to come back to that question that I had. I guess we'll do another one at the moment. What is the most challenging thing from your perspective or in your current state about being spiritual in your human body?
That's a really challenging question. I have to survey my thoughts right now. I guess, challenges come from the constant barrage of everything all the time. Yeah, it's definitely challenging to feel overwhelmed, but I also feel like there's always a path out of every challenge. I guess there's no single challenge that keeps coming back. There's just a lot of little challenges that come all the time.
Nothing really repeated, but just a lot of ongoing.
Yeah, and that's what the life is. It's just a cycle of catalyst and karma. It's just, and if we're not facing one lesson properly, it's going to come in a slightly different form next time around, and it's going to keep on coming and coming and coming to deal with it. I guess you could say the challenge is not recognizing the behaviors and patterns that we're stuck in. And so not knowing what we don't know is the challenge.
Right, yeah. Because then we can't break those patterns if we don't.
Yeah.
Right? That's where I would say from my perspective, spouses come in quite handy.
Oh yeah.
Because they are willing to let you know what those patterns of behavior are. Hopefully.
If you're discussing it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's a behavior pattern too that people are stuck in, not discussing whatever it is that's bothering them about the other person.
Yeah.
That's huge.
But that is a really good way, in generally, in a functional relationship, a relatively safe sort of space and a safe way to get called out on our bullshit so that we can be like, whoa, wait, you're right. I was doing that and I didn't even know it.
Yeah. Every day.
That's the perfect opportunity for spouses there. So let's come back really quick. I think I've formulated better my other question, which is kind of back on the trigger, and maybe even challenges and triggers are similar or maybe kind of go hand in hand. What is a trigger from your perspective?
I guess it's anything that leads to frustration.
Yeah.
I think it seems tied to frustration generally.
Misunderstanding generally.
Yeah. And the raw contact has a very interesting description of anger, which I think frustration ultimately is just like a tiny form of
Mm-hmm.
anger. And they call it a undirected and random red ray energy, which is like the root chakra energy. It's like this buildup of energy in our system, which we haven't funneled into a way to control that or process that energy properly. So it's like a metaphysical buildup that hasn't found an outlet yet. And so I think that's what, a trigger is an energy that is pushing us to use it for something, either for acceptance or for control. Those
Mm-hmm.
are the two paths. And as people who want to pursue love, the goal is to find a way to accept and integrate anything that's frustrating us and triggering us. And that's always possible. But to do that, sometimes you have to get more angry first.
Mm-hmm.
You have to experience it and process it. And that's not a very common teaching that you hear, is like
Yes.
sit in that trigger so deeply that you can integrate it.
You can let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that it can pass
Yeah.
sort of through you and not get stuck.
Right.
That's very interesting. I don't know very much. I'm learning every day more and more about everything, and chakras is one of them. And sort of it's interesting that you say that anger, it lives there or it starts there. Can you maybe explain that a little bit?
Well, it's something I still don't fully understand, except that, I feel like the chakra system is essentially like the energy that fuels the way we think.
Okay.
And it's connected to our physical body too. The chakra system
Yes.
is the interface between the mind and the body, the inner and the outer natures of our existence. And there are 7 different energy centers, which are like vortexes of almost like gateways or portals
Mm-hmm.
in between the physical and the non-physical aspects of our being. And the simplest example people know about is the pineal gland,
Mm-hmm.
where there's this, once we reach and access the third eye, then we have this direct awareness into the metaphysical nature of our reality through that opening. But it's actually, I think, an opening that happens on the 6 chakras below it, and it really relates to the 7 ways in which we can see reality, and see our current experience. We see first in terms of survival. That's the red ray energy. We look at everything in terms of survival when we're stuck in that energy. We can say, I'm not gonna be able to pay my bills, not gonna be able to feed myself. You can be afraid and stuck in that energy. But once you are able to see this doesn't matter because I'm totally secure, then you can look in terms of orange ray chakra energy, which is seeing in terms of personal identity, personal eccentricities, personal quirks of how you see yourself can get stuck there and affect everything else about your experience and your way of being. And you can have just distortions there with and still open up your third chakra, which is what humans are all primarily focused on, is the yellow ray third chakra, which is seeing in terms of social relations, seeing it in terms of with a blockage you could see in terms of control and manipulating other selves in the context of a society through that lens. And so, to some degree, the red ray energy has to be processed on some level. If you're going to open it up to love, you have to be willing to open your heart and not see in terms of controlling others when you want to properly process that energy. And once you can see in terms of wanting peace and joy and comfort for others, and that's literally something the raw contact says, to open the heart to see, you have to see peace, joy, and love, wanting peace, joy, and love for others, and not desire to manipulate them or influence them, but just want their peace, joy, and love to be continued. Then you can easily open your heart and see in terms of universal love shared freely. And that's a long journey too, to open your heart more and more fully. And then that leads to the Blu-ray opening, which is seeing in terms of open and honest communication of that love and energy. Really, it's a sharing of energy through the Blu-ray that we can open up more and more. And communication is the primary way that we do that with our words, is very helpful. And then opening up to the universal nature of all creation is the opening of the indigo at the third eye center.
So is there a relationship between the chakras, these energy centers, and sort of the path at which things have to be processed? Like, does it start in the root? Like when we're talking about that anger, like that's sort of where it comes, and then we have to kind of process everything up through the different energy centers?
Yes, but we already have done a lot of balancing and processing of our energy centers at any given time. It's just that's the filtering mechanism, is it has to filter through these levels of perceiving our reality. If you can't get past something about, seeing in terms of I have to see myself as a failure or something, then you can't really think about yourself as a normal functioning person in society. If you're stuck on that lower ego, ego is may not maybe the right word, but it's it's just a blockage of how you see yourself that can be blocking the wider expansion of your integration of the yellow ray, which is the necessary for wider integration of the heart.
Okay. And that kind of makes sense if you think about the chakras as, I think it's, what is it, like the bottom three are really focused on the human experience. And so it makes a lot of sense that things would start there and we would kind of have to process and filter from the bottom up, because that's really the root, like, is where we're grounding, like, into this planet, into this three-dimensional
it's like
world.
where the outer experiences are coming and hitting us from. Yeah.
Really interesting stuff. That's so cool. So we've talked about a lot of different things today so far. I guess, do you have any particular, so you talked a little bit about meditation. Do you have any, like, other spiritual practices or rituals? Because I also know that you have a religious aspect of your life, which is very cool.
Yeah.
That you really like currently, or that really kind of help you?
Yeah. I had an intuition that I could share that as I drove here, I decided to throw out the lyrics to a hymn. I just started making up lyrics and singing them. And that is a lot of fun.
Oh, that is
fun. Singing in the car and finding the highest level of words that you can find in the song, making songs for yourself. I mean, worship is one recommended practice, and they actually say in the Law of One, but they actually combine worship and thanksgiving a lot of times.
Okay.
Giving thanks is what worship is kind of about. And, being willing to get to a point of singing about how thankful we are is a beautiful space to be in. And so, worship in a church setting can kind of just be like focus on the words, not really digging into what that means internally. But I see those as ladders too. Each phrase in a worship song can be reinterpreted on a level that means less and less about the finite material aspects of our being, and more about this deep, spiritual, infinite, deeply connected to heaven kind of being. And you can open up the gates to heaven in some way with words as they take on the deeper meanings to you. And then as you sing those words, it's kind of like a meditation where you're stepping out of your normal thoughts and you're stepping into a deeper processing of these principles or these feelings, which are more reverent, or more peaceful or loving. All the things that we're seeking to kind of integrate into our being more. I
love that you bring that up. We are definitely going to do quite a few podcast episodes on music and song and sound and vibration. And I think lyrics, we talked about this on the Jiu-Jitsu one as well with Natty. The lyrics to music are really impactful. Like, it's something that I would say over the past maybe 10-ish years, I've slowly filtered out a lot of music that I quote, because when I find myself singing the words, I'm like, what the fuck am I even saying? You know? And I'm like, I don't need to manifest that, actually.
Yeah. I've been there. Yeah.
Because it's so passion. I mean, we're singing songs that we like, and there's a lot of passion and emotion and energy. And I'm like, I definitely don't need to bring those things.
Yeah.
So I really like that. I really like that. So the other thing I want to kind of talk about, and I think for you, the answer to this question is going to be pretty easy. But in general, when you're kind of with your son, we'll use that as the baseline. When you're with your son, how are you teaching? How are you teaching him about spirituality, about oneness, about recognizing, about this de-identification? He is really young. He's still just figuring out, the basics of walking and communicating and all of that. So what do you do with your son there?
It's kind of like pointing him in a different direction all the time. if I feel like he's upset about something, I can try to explain things to him, and if he gets hurt, I can try to say, I mean, I've begun to try to say things like, just have faith, Daniel, it'll heal automatically. and it does seem like it's helped.
Yep.
It's like, but I've tried other things like, oh, it just doesn't matter. Just work your way through it, Daniel. It doesn't matter. And so I think it's an emotional vibration. I'm not sure how many words he's understanding. I assume he's telepathic and he can pick up on words.
He definitely, he knows what we're saying. I'm going to tell this story just because it's like my all-time favorite interaction ever with a kid. And Mike has heard this, but we went on a like a winter camping trip at a cabin with Mike and a couple other folks, and they brought Daniel. And Daniel and I think you guys were like walking outside or something, and Daniel and Elizabeth and I were there. And so this was over 6 months ago. So Daniel wasn't even 18 months yet. And we were playing on the floor, and the floor was made of tile that looked like wood. So it had grains and knots and all that kind of stuff in it. And Daniel was like really focused on the tile, and he kept pointing to this knot. And then he was pointing around the room and doing some other things, and I wasn't paying attention. So I was like, all right, let me pay attention to him real quick. So he's pointing to this knot on the tile. And then he points from the knot on the tile to the end of like a branch that was cut off of a tree. So like kind of like a knot, right, in a tree. Like it's not exactly the same thing, but very similar looking. And he just looked at me, and I was like, yes, in fact, you are correct. That knot on the floor is basically just like a knot in the tree. And so we were kind of talking, and he was pointing to other knots on the floor. And then he points from the wood. So this was like wood next to like a fireplace or a wood burning stove or something. He pointed from the wood to a grocery store, a reusable grocery store bag that had trees on it. And I was like, in fact, you are also correct. Like, this comes from that, and it's all the same thing. And he was like, didn't say a single word, you know? And like, yes, the pointing is helpful, but absolutely, like, he was totally getting inside there. I was like, thank you very much for letting me help you.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
Yeah. It's what's really interesting is that he there's so many instances I could share, I suppose, but there's cases where like I'll be playing with him with a particular object. He has something in his hand, and I don't want him to put it in his mouth, but I'm not really thinking about that. And then his mom will come up and say, Daniel, don't put that in your mouth. And as soon as she starts to even talk, he's bringing it up to his mouth. He's already putting it in his mouth.
So like, he doesn't hear the don't, right? Just like the universe. He hears the put it in your mouth.
Yeah, but he's hearing it before she even says it. He's seeing that the thought has occurred to her that he might put it in his mouth. It's like, oh, that's a good idea. I should try
that. That is hilarious. I love that.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So what else? What else is on your mind today?
I guess I'm a blank slate mostly.
Well, this has been really great so far. I think Mike runs this like special meetup that has all kinds of cool stuff on it, but he does an interfaith spiritual discussion, and we talk about a lot of these sort of similar things. We talk about love, we talk about discernment and judgment.
Yeah.
We have a lot of really interesting conversations, and podcast's still not sponsored by Meetup, but it's in my opinion, like a great place to potentially find open groups that are kind of a little bit. We have quite a few people who have religious backgrounds who comes to these, but who are a little bit less religious and more just about the spiritual.
Yeah. I feel there's an activist in me that wants to like tell people like, if you don't have a meetup.com account, you should get a meetup.com account wherever you live, wherever you are. You should have a meetup.com account and have amazing spiritual conversations with people who are just like you. They exist everywhere, but they don't have a place to have these conversations yet.
Yep. Yeah. And I would say, I mean, it's like you don't see a lot of advertisements for things like Meetup, but they really do have a lot of really cool things. So I think that probably does it for today. We'll give Mike an opportunity with our last question, which is, what is one tip about living as a spiritual being in this human existence that you'd like to share with the listeners?
I guess I shared a lot of them today. Let's see here. I guess the tip I would have maybe seems most most centered is to be willing to believe that there is a far deeper love that is behind your current moment experience than you could have ever realized. Be willing to consider that there's something so much more joyful and amazing that's happening right now than you had realized. And the willingness to go there and to find that love in the moment is really the point of this reality, I think, is to bring us to the next level. And you can go looking for love externally and believe that it's not already there, but the true joy is to find that it has always been there on a deeper level, like an infinite archetypal level that is manifesting in a most purified way to give us exactly what we're seeking. To realize that that's the truth is it just requires a willingness that you have to look for that.
Beautiful. And the crazy part, I get goosebumps a lot on this podcast, but as soon as you said, like, believe in the love, I felt this, like, huge swell in the room. Like, it was really, I don't know if you felt that, but you were like, believe in the love, and it was like, boo, in the room. It was awesome. I was like, yes, we believe in the love. Well, thank you so much, Mike. This was wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for starting a podcast. Thank you for trying to make a difference and help people with this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Take care.
And there we have it. That closes episode Exploring Spirituality with Mike. And if you have any questions for Mike, feel free to head over to Spotify and use the Spotify Q&A where we've put a question there. What questions do you have for Mike? If you're interested in hearing more episodes around different religions, let us know as well in the Spotify poll. And thank you again so much for listening. This was a great, more generic episode about spirituality as a human in this planet, in these bodies. And we're going to have a couple more episodes like this as well. And just a friendly reminder, I appreciate all of the support. If you want to subscribe and follow the podcast, that would be great. In Spotify, it's just the follow button underneath the album or the cover art. And in iTunes, it's actually a subscribe button. It has a little plus icon in the top kind of right corner on the opposite side of the album art. Happy Hump Day, and see you all next week. Thank you for joining me on today's Spirituality What? Adventure. Subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. Visit us on Instagram at spirituality.what to interact, tell us what spirituality means to you, and even provide some of your own personal musings. Human on, you phenomenal spiritual beings.